Welcome to the Habitat podcast.
My name's Nathan.
And I'm Kaylin. And we're two guys having a chat about our habitat. Yoo-hoo!
On this episode, we talk trash to each other. We talk about all things repurposing, reusing, recycling, and all other re-words you can think of. Hope you enjoy the show.
Need a shave.
Need a shave.
Yeah.
It's getting a bit scraggly.
That's the best description for my facial hair.
Yeah.
Scraggly.
Scraggly. Oh, that's good though.
Is it?
Got a solid mo.
Is it?
Yeah.
Is it good?
Sidebands?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Do you know what? I just given up.
I've
given up on facial hair, so I just ignore anything that happens on my
face.
face.
You haven't put any effort into like pushing out some hair?
No, I haven't tried to like hold my breath and do it.
Yeah, that's how you usually do it anyway.
Mm.
So,
good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm well.
That's
well.
good.
Bright and early.
Yes.
Before
the sparrows.
Yeah, before early bird gets the worm.
Yeah.
So, what I want to talk about today is...
Here we go.
Well, we're actually talking trash today.
Yeah.
And not
trash.
the kind of trash that you talk with
like
your mates.
just our general conversation.
Yeah, just our general conversation, our general day-to-day. But we're actually talking trash. And the topic for today is repurposing waste.
Oh, love it. Love it,
Yes.
love it, love it, love it, love it. Love
Yes.
it. Especially for us being in a construction industry and seeing where that goes.
I just want to get a feel, like, what's your take on repurposing waste at the moment?
Well, I feel like it's underrated and not really something that's tapped into. I was actually thinking about this last night. Why would I make something new, for instance, in architecture, in a building, why would I make something new, like demolish something completely and then throw those materials away to then just make something new on that spot? Like, wouldn't it just make sense to reuse it? Like, yeah, sure, you don't like the form of the building, you could knock it down, but reuse those materials within the... That's just... I was thinking about that yesterday. But general purpose waste, my sister is really, really good at not using... Like, she...
Oh, really?
Yeah, she's like a full... waste Nazi. Anything you think of, and she's opened my mind to.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, that's really interesting. You talking about that, like reusing is one of the key words that we want to focus on here, and repurposing can often be misconstrued into like different forms of recycling, and there is different forms of recycling. So one of them is reusing, which is repurposing. That's repurposing waste. There's upcycling, there's recycling, there's composting. So they're the different types of ways we can treat our waste.
Yeah.
So all of those have their own sort of characteristics in itself. But what we'll focus on today is like repurposing, and that's perfect that you're on that wavelength of reusing and
connected. Bro.
Yeah,
connected.
So I just actually wanted to start with a really great quote from an American essayist, my favorite American essayist.
American essayist. Can we just pause there for a second? What the hell is an essayist? Is it like a poet, but
they just write. They don't
essays? Rhyme.
Yeah. No, basically like a scholar, but
right. Okay.
Like an academic scholar.
Okay.
The academic scholar is Ralph Waldo Emerson, and he. On the topic of repurposing, he described a weed as a plant whose virtues have not been yet discovered.
Oh, chills. Literal chills.
And I think that really speaks to a lot of our attitudes around waste. We haven't really like discovered the virtues of our own waste, because by our very nature, like humans have to consume, right? Yeah. We have to consume things to live, say food, for instance. That's like a very obvious example.
Yeah.
But with that, waste comes out of that.
Yeah.
Naturally.
Yeah.
It's our biological system, how it operates, and that spills over into all facets of life, like whether it's construction or fashion or furniture or anything like that.
Feels like as we've developed as a species, our waste has also developed. It hasn't just become the scraps of food that we finish eating and our poop. It's also become our environment and the tools we use and all of those types of things.
Yeah, and it's a really fascinating topic because it sort of puts us in a very interesting position where, to make progress, do we need to produce waste to then better the current thing?
Oh, like
you know what
Inception.
Yeah, so it's like we have to use something and then produce it as waste and then reflect on how it can be made better.
Yeah, I feel like, I mean...
Like we throw tools away and then say, okay, how could that be better?
Yeah.
Like the like phones we use, that's like an obvious example. It's like it's always getting better with each year, but it's producing so much waste.
Yeah.
So how can we like repurpose that?
Yeah. Well, I feel like that's kind of reflecting on all topic, like just humanity in general, in the sense that like we're now discovering you can't burn oil and coal and that be sustainable. We have to do some renewable energy funding and sourcing. So yeah, I feel like that's the pattern of humanity, is like we produce these things and we get to a point where like, oh no, what have we done? Yeah. And then we go back and fix it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so I think that's what that repurposing is.
Yeah, and once, one Google search of repurposing waste, you're going to get tips and tricks on how to, repurpose a wine bottle or,
So
repurpose some jars.
Are you saying that people should be Googling this stuff and not what Kim Kardashian is doing?
Well, look, there's one thing we can repurpose, and that's a bit of trash in itself. No, but seriously, to put a bit of context around it, and a bit of research into how much waste we're producing year by year, in Australia alone, in 2017, we recorded 600,000 tons of waste.
What?
But this wasn't just stockpiled here, and this is where the repurposing waste really comes into effect. We ship it to China.
Okay.
And this is where the plot thickens a little bit more, because China has actually stopped taking our waste. So we've actually had to outsource Australia's waste alone to countries like Malaysia, Vietnam, Indonesia.
Oh my god. That's...
So countries rather, not people in the countries buy our waste and then reuse it themselves to make products.
Right, okay.
So part reason for that is they can reuse it for new products and reuse it for... but what's happening at the moment is that's not happening in China anymore. Or they're not taking on our trash to repurpose into their products that they sold back to us and then to the rest of the world. So a lot of what's happening at the moment is that Australia's waste alone and our recycled waste is just being stockpiled in a warehouse.
Yeah, okay.
And that presents a bit of a problem, because how much
physical
can
space
we actually accommodate for our trash?
Well, it sounds like we can't. If we're getting rid of it, if we're making it go offshore because we can't manage the amount of waste we're producing ourselves, that is a big problem. That is a big problem. And I get the sense of repurposing. So sending it to China, because China's a major manufacturer of electronics, so therefore they reuse some of that to produce But obviously they've seen a problem because they've stopped. I mean, I don't know the politics of it, but that doesn't seem right to me.
Yeah, no, and it's I think it presents like a huge problem in itself, because I myself, like, for one, didn't know that we were selling our waste to another country. It just seemed really, really foreign to me, like, pun intended, but it's very strange to be like shipping our waste to someone else. Like, I think the attitude for me should be more aligned to how can we like best use this resource, because it harkens back to the quote that we started with. It's how can we best use something and really acknowledge its virtue, even though we regard it as waste. And I think that's on an individual level, we tend to think when our waste is discarded, when we throw something in the bin, it's out of sight, out of mind.
So you're saying it's possibly a shift and change in attitude?
Yeah, I think that what needs to happen is more of an attitude shift.
Yeah.
Because without that, like, we can outsource to companies and countries, but what really needs to happen on an individual level is to be conscious of the waste we're producing and really put some thought into how we can extend its life beyond what it's actually for.
Yeah.
So one example that I practice myself is extending the life of jars. I can't see any reason to throw away a jar.
Man, I'm exactly the same, and I get in trouble for it at home because I just have this massive jar collection. You ask any housemate I've had ever, and they're like, Kaylin, why is the whole cupboard taken up with jars? I'm like, well, they've got a purpose. They have a purpose. I do reuse them. Like, I reuse them to put, loose food into. I reuse them at the moment to grow avocado seeds.
Yeah.
So, and then I'll wash them out and reuse it for something else, because they're such like a great tool to have, and so much energy has gone into it. Exactly. I just can't imagine throwing that away, like that being single use. Like,
yeah, exactly. There's so much embodied energy in a jar in itself. Like, that as one example, it's not just like some sort of Tupperware container. It's an actual jar, and it's, it has so much use beyond than, carrying like peanut butter or like your coffee or something. It can be used for everything. Things.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's just one example, and really to hone in on the individual responsibility that we have. In my research, I found that the average Australian produces 1.5 tons of waste a year.
A year?
A year.
How much does an elephant weigh?
To bring it back down to relative scale, that's 2 kilograms of trash a day.
Whoa.
2 kilograms.
2 kilos of trash a day.
Yeah. And in the grand scheme of things, 2 kilograms, you might be thinking, oh, what's 2 kilograms?
No, but like, if you get in the lift and the lift is full of people, look around, every single person is going to make 2 kilos of trash that day. There's 5 of you on the lift. That's 10 kilos of trash. Lift's full. There's 10 people in the lift. That's 20 kilos of trash.
Yep.
Like, I can't even lift out of the gym. No, that's all right. Thanks to my trainer, I can. But yeah, that's hectic.
Yeah. So, and part of that research, I found a really useful, I suppose, resource and really great thought experiment that you can like run by, and it's called "What Would Your Garbage Selfie Look Like?" So if you,
I love where this is going.
So post this to social media on your.
Yeah.
So if you stockpiled and didn't all your trash and didn't dispose of any of your garbage for a week, what would that trash or that garbage selfie look like? If you laid down on the ground and had all your garbage around you, what would it actually look like?
Beyond disgusting,
yeah.
What is actually in there? What is the contents?
What is the content?
Yeah.
So It's really bringing into light, okay, this is the things that I'm throwing away. Can I actually reuse some of these things?
Yeah.
Does it need to be thrown away?
Am I throwing away jars?
Yeah. And I suppose I do recognize that some things in their very nature need to be thrown away.
Yeah.
Like in the moment, but I think having that thought or having that attitude just before, like giving it a thought before you throw it in the trash, is saying, can this actually be used for something else?
Yeah.
You know, what?
Yeah. Or even a step before that, when you're purchasing items. And this is what my sister does. When she's purchasing items, she's thinking about the end use of that item. So if she's buying rice, she'll buy bulk rice because there's less waste. You know, it's the step before and the step during, I suppose.
Yeah. No, that's a really great attitude to have. Like before the process, being conscious of, or before investing in something, being conscious of how can I best utilize this?
Yeah, it's just having the foresight on what you're buying.
Yeah.
I don't know, that seems like a really mundane thing to do when you're doing your supermarket shop and every item you pick up amongst the hundreds of items you're going to purchase that day, you're thinking about those things. But it's just about getting in the habit of it, and you do it a couple times and then you start naturally thinking about it, and then you encourage that within yourself, and then next minute you're doing it. You know, you're actually living that lifestyle.
Yeah, and it does become a lifestyle of repurposing what you consume. It's being resourceful with the resources that you use.
Yeah.
It's not just discarding something and then out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah.
And I think to bring it out of an individual responsibility and into more of a societal responsibility, it's shifting away from this economy of linear scale to a circular economy.
Yes.
So a circular economy is great in principle, but it's very, very hard to achieve.
Okay.
Because it requires that organizations get involved and becomes a part of this system of repurposing our waste, repurposing our goods into new goods, or integrating them into the production of new goods.
So is there a level of foresight? Is it hard to achieve because there's a level of foresight needed at each individual stage, and therefore there is a sacrifice that is needing to be made in order for it to get to the next stage and then the stage after? Because
when you say sacrifice, what do you...
Well, I mean, on a linear scale, a company knows that they can maximize a profit with that product whilst they have it, and then they discard it. And then beyond that point, they don't need to think about it.
Yeah, of course.
So in a circular scale, I think it's going to come, or whatever you call it, it's going to come back. So there will be I can imagine a level of sacrifice at that point in order for it to get all the way around.
Yeah, absolutely. And it does put a lot of strain and responsibility on the company, and they don't really see, or in a business point of view, there's no real initiative to repurpose waste or integrate that back into. It's more profitable to, source it as a new thing.
Yes.
But in saying that, that is an opportunity for businesses to really reach out to the collective that are on that wavelength of repurposing their waste and being conscious about the types of waste that we use. So one business that I found in Brisbane here alone is called Reverse Garbage.
Yeah, nice. Okay.
Yeah. And their whole business model is about sourcing industrial and commercial goods.
Yep.
So i.e. like printers, little plastic things that you get from offcuts, anything that you can source from the production of a new good.
Anything we might say is waste.
Anything we might deem waste. And it's stockpiled in a warehouse, and it's basically a store where you can purchase these things in bulk.
Right.
So that's a self-made initiative from their business point of view, from their business plan.
Yeah. Okay.
So it starts to open up this circular economy of like, okay, how can we take what we're producing? How can we take what we're wasting and really put it in this circular economy of giving back and finding a new resource and finding a new way of using this product? And I suppose what they're doing is being creative with the kind of waste that we do produce. So, but it's always up to the consumer to identify that. It's like, it's saying a little rubber pellet or a little rubber mat can be used for something else. Yeah. And that's the basic crux of it.
That's what I was going to ask you. You talked earlier about that shift in attitude. So that shift in attitude, do you think comes from the person, or does it come from higher up? Does it come from government? Does it come from governing bodies like companies, or where do you see that come from? Chicken and the egg, I suppose.
Yeah, that's it. What comes first? Ultimately, I think the most power comes from the individual as a consumer.
The power with the people, which is
because
a future episode topic.
That is right. That's right. Just a little teaser there.
Yeah, ooh, watch out.
What's to come?
Watch this space.
And it does come back to that point of the consumer determines the market, right? The consumer being you and I. We consume things, we buy things every day. We have to do that in order to function in society, right?
Yes.
I mean, if you're on that wavelength that you can't consume something, then please get in contact with
us. Oh my God, please. I want to know what your lifestyle's like.
I want to know how you do it. But yeah, it does become this individual effort first.
Yeah.
And then from that, it informs the market of how we can change from a linear economy to a circular economy.
Yes.
Right? So it then changes from that individual to change the higher up systems. So that's one way we can actually solve this.
Yeah, I think that's really... Yeah, it takes a lot though, doesn't it? I mean, it's a really like awesome thing to aspire to. Just chucking my practical mind onto it.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think of the logistics and how that could work, and that's relying on people and energies to be able to, the energy of those people to be able to portray that, produce that, project that, and hopefully influence. Because at the moment, if you think about the way our society generally works, is someone would do one thing, other people catch on, it'll become a trend, and then people start doing it.
Yeah.
And then it may phase out, it may just continue on, maybe that's what this is. Maybe that's how this can be.
Yeah. Yeah, and I do feel that people are waking up to this attitude of being conscious about the kinds of things that we consume and how but it's taking that next step of saying, okay, now that we've identified the ethically sourced companies and all the companies and businesses that are doing good in the marketplace, how can we now put it in a system that is just turbocharging this circular economy?
Yeah, exactly. And on the topic of sustainability is a broad term. It covers multiple facets. It just means something can sustain itself indefinitely. So economy comes into sustainability as well. And does our push for sustainability on an environmental perspective actually produce a sustainable economy?
Yeah, exactly. Because we could be engaging in in quotation marks, sustainable practices that aren't actually sustainable in the long term.
Yeah.
They seem virtuous in the moment, in the present moment, but giving them extra thought, do they actually fit into this circular economy?
Yeah. That's one topic, term people use that just irks me, is more sustainable. Oh, this option's more sustainable.
Yeah.
You can't be more sustainable or less sustainable. It is sustainable or it's not sustainable.
It's very black and white.
Yeah, exactly. It's no shades of grey. If you want to use shades of grey, that's where you jump into the eco territory and the more environmentally friendly territory, or more bang for your buck. But you don't. Yeah. Anyway, it's a little rant.
No, that's a really great point. And I suppose that is also another lead on to how do we solve this, is talking about the public engagement and perception of our waste.
Yeah.
You know, how do we engage with our efforts to repurpose our waste? So what's our public perception of waste? And it comes back to that, where we are at the moment, of being out of sight, out of mind. We're happy to throw something in the bin and then have it shipped off.
Yeah.
But it's now bringing that into the forefront of, okay, if we can do that by, just by letting someone else do it as a higher up, how can we actually change that from a public level? And it does.
Yeah. And from an individual level, I think it's, for me personally, I think it's about, okay, let's pull back to the home, your place of habitat. So in your home, you are given a recycling bin, you're given a green waste bin, and you're given a red bin, or like a general waste bin. That's the formula in Brisbane anyway. So in your home, when you're cooking in the kitchen, for example, you either throw things in the general waste bin, or you look at your stockpile of stuff and go, oh, what can be recycled? This is recycled, this is recycled, this is recycled, the rest is general waste. And that's where you finish with dealing with your trash. But it's about, I think, changing that mentality and putting an extra step in there. What can be repurposed? What can, out of all of this that I have, that I'm about to discard, what can I reuse again? What can be repurposed? And I feel like that mentality will then start influencing other sections of your life, to the point where you're getting to the supermarket and you're thinking, oh no, I'm not going to buy that product today. I'm going to bulk buy that product because I have so many jars already.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah,
and there are businesses that operate on that initiative. To go back to the jar example, because I love talking about jars.
Yeah, jars.
There is bulk food companies and businesses that operate on incentivizing the consumer to bring in their own containers or containment of goods.
Like your local cafe.
Well, like in particular, like for if you're doing your food shop,
you
can fill up your own jars with nuts, seeds.
Whatever, it's like the bulk food supply.
The bulk food supply.
Yeah, love those places.
Yeah. So that's a really great initiative to step into that space, and I think at the moment those businesses operate on a quantity of like almost like a Costco or like the bulk buy model system. You have to buy in bulk to actually get some value out of it. But being a relatively new concept coming into fruition and challenging those models of what a supermarket is, it does require more investment from the consumer.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, I know it's a little bit more extra effort to take my jar into this place and fill up my own thing when I could just literally have it packaged, ready to go from a supermarket.
Spot. Yeah. It's about the convenience.
It's about the convenience.
And sacrificing that convenience.
Yeah. So at what point do we say convenience isn't enough anymore? Convenience doesn't work for the
Well,
circular
I think
economy.
we can say that now. It doesn't work. Convenience
Exactly.
doesn't work. We've literally modelled our society from, think of the 1960s ads about convenience and, you know, like we've literally modelled our society from that point forward in this plastic-based, single-use, and we know now that it's not sustainable.
Yeah.
And that it should have been beyond this point.
Yeah.
That we said convenience isn't working, but, you know, better late than never.
Yeah, at what point does it become convenient to be swimming in your own garbage when you're at the beach next time?
Yeah, exactly. At what point does it become convenient to be building a whole new society on a garbage island that's in the middle of the Pacific Ocean? Like, you know, it's just about that, coming back to that foresight.
Yeah.
Just allowing yourself the room to have foresight and just think about it. Just stop and think about it for 1 second. And then you can make an ethical decision based on your own principles. And I'm not saying you need to or you don't need to, but as long as you're making that decision based on your own principles, then hopefully, because generally the general population are good people, I see. So hopefully we start making some good choices.
Yeah, and it does come back to those choices, but from there, it's making that connection to those good choices that we want to make. So at the moment, there's those disconnects that we have to deal with, and to really hone in on them is the first disconnect being people don't view it as their problem.
Yep.
You know, it's not my problem to deal with my own waste.
Yep.
Even though I'm producing my own waste,
it should come from a higher source.
There are ways of, you know, dealing with this waste.
Yeah.
The garbage truck picks it up, takes it away,
and
out of sight.
Yeah. Out of mind.
Out of mind.
Yeah.
And the next sort of disconnect is that waste and resources aren't seen as the same thing. So I think from there we need to bridge that gap of dissonance between waste and being resourceful as the same thing.
Yes, definitely. I think that's a really good point that you bring up, and something I haven't thought of prior to this discussion. So I think that's I hope people take that away and think about that and spread the word.
Yeah, and I suppose to bring it into the areas of waste that we most produce in, food being one of them.
Yep.
Food being one of them, and there's great initiatives in Oz Harvest where they
absolutely
they repurpose, or they don't. It's not necessarily repurposing, but they redistribute those.
Yeah, and their business model or their model is based off helping those who need it. Maybe that's something that other waste can be used for.
Yeah.
You know, government housing, for instance. I'm just trying to put it back into like a building context.
Food is one of the very tricky and one of the biggest grey areas of repurposing waste, if we want to bring it back to that central topic of repurposing, because once something becomes waste or perceived as waste in a food context, so say for instance in a restaurant a bit of food is used, how can you then repurpose that food, and will it be accepted on the dinner plate or wherever it goes?
Yeah.
You know, got to be used for composting, like a local composting. Like,
exactly.
And it's those initiatives of having a think about, okay, and really taking an audit of our trash, all that food that we use.
Yeah.
And don't use.
Yeah.
That becomes, you know, landfill and just generates so much methane gas from that.
Yeah.
Which
can be used for
that's a reality in itself. When food is disposed into landfill, it gets trapped under all this garbage, all this plastic, and actually builds up a deposit because it can't decompose properly, and it builds up in a methane gas.
Yeah.
So further adding to the ozone layer and carbon
Yeah, I remember at uni we had to find a way to produce energy on site. And one of the things I proposed was this system where we harvested that methane gas from the local trash.
Nice.
And we then converted it to power, and we actually, rough calculations, I'm not in any way an engineer, but we worked out that we could actually power this entire building and potentially buildings around it based off people's trash alone. Because
That's fantastic.
there's an endless supply of it. People are always going to be using it. So that was pretty cool. Like, it was compostable trash, obviously. But that was pretty cool little experiment to see what we could do with trash.
Yeah. And that's another sector of where we generate our waste is the construction sector.
Yes.
Construction sector does its best to minimize its waste with surveyors, quantity surveyors and estimators. But ultimately there are always going to be contingencies for those waste. So we're always going to produce waste on the job site. We're going to try and marginalize that to a very small fraction.
And repurpose.
But how can we repurpose that waste that is produced?
Yeah. So, do you know the latest statistic? Is it 40% of all waste landfill is construction waste? I'm pretty sure it was 40%. Yeah. Which is something ridiculous when you think about it. So we need development for society. I feel like we need development. That's always a good thing. But yeah, it's just about honing it back in, isn't it? Yeah. And thinking, how can we repurpose as opposed to... Yeah.
And another sector that can be really focused in on, honed in on, is a big one: fashion.
Oh, fashion, yes.
Fashion is a huge one, with certain businesses and companies, not to name and shame any of them, are focused on this economy of fast fashion.
Yeah.
So producing lines of fashion at a very fast scale at the convenience for you to keep up to date with trends.
Yeah, I was just about to say that the consumer powers in with the consumer.
Yeah.
So.
And it comes at that convenience of speed and price.
Yeah.
So those are the two things that make it convenient as a consumer, but it's also having that weight of conscience of saying this is coming at the expense of those two things, but it's also adding to the problem of this is actually not a very high quality made garment.
Yeah.
It's
not
probably
ethically
not gonna
made.
last.
Let's be honest.
It's not
probably
ethically
made in a sweatshop somewhere.
Exactly. Yeah.
And beyond that, from an environmental perspective, like you said, it's producing so much waste. Yeah.
And in my research, I wanted to sort of point out a really great initiative in that sector of fashion. A designer in New York, I believe, Emily Bode. And
shout out, Emily.
Emily Bode, you're doing great. Her business runs off is around luxury menswear, and it's a passion for patchwork, which she reuses things like quilts and curtains and all of those different household items and makes them into fashion.
Yeah, cool.
And
that's awesome. That's a great way of repurposing.
And they look fantastic.
Yeah.
You know. But obviously that comes with a price tag.
Yeah.
You know.
It comes with a premium.
With those artisanal items comes with a price tag. You're paying for something that's been handcrafted.
Yeah.
Being paid for something that's actually been thought about.
Yes. And that's the thing. That's kind of the economy we're in at the moment, isn't it? Where we're at this changing point, this shift, and sustainability isn't cheap.
Yeah.
So
those are some of the sectors that we can improve our efforts in repurposing our waste and shifting our attitudes to on how we deal with our waste.
Yep.
As human beings, we will always produce waste, but it's up to us to have the attitude and have the initiative to rethink of how we can reuse this waste.
Yeah.
So we'll leave it there. And I want to leave a question for you all. What kind of waste can you reuse in your life? So next time you go to throw something out, just give it a thought. You don't necessarily need to follow through with the action. It's just having that thought and planting that thought of saying, how can I use this for something else? Just could it be used in another part of my life that's not necessarily what the thing was designed for?
Yeah. Just think about it. Just think about it.
That's the best we can do at this point, and what we want to communicate to you all. And so,
Cool.
it was a great chat, Kaylin.
Yeah, man. That was, you could say a habity chat.
A habity chat.
A habity chat.
Habity chat.
Habity chat. So, admin, follow us on Instagram, like us on Facebook, contribute to the discussion.
Yep.
All those things. You can be able to find links to all these in the description.
Yep, you will find all the resources and research in the link or in the description, wherever seems best. And yeah, we'll see you in the next episode.
Yep. See you? Will we?
We'll talk to you in the next episode.
Talk to you. Yeah, I think that's right. Because they won't see us, and we won't see them, and we won't hear them. Oh no, but we will.
Oh, but we will
on our social media platforms.
That's exactly right.
All right, peace out.
Peace out.
Thanks for tuning into this episode. We hope you've enjoyed this chat. Feel free to join the discussion by finding us on social media. Here, we really encourage our listeners to get involved and extend the conversation. If there's a topic that you'd like us to talk about, drop us a line. From the Habichatters, have a good day.